It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Marav van Schack. She is the founder of BioBlitz.club, which is a home for citizen science or community science events in the South Bay. And people can learn about different activities as well as download some free materials such as bird and flower guides on her website. Marav leads lots of BioBlitz events where people can document as many different living things as possible and learn about their local environments. She also collaborates with many different organizations to lead hikes and workshops, and these include organizations like Keep Coyote Creek Beautiful, the Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society, Sequoia Audubon, and so many others. She also teaches natural history at San Jose State University and contributes to a lot of different citizen science projects on her time. Marav has a bachelor's in biology, a master's in ecology, and a PhD in zoology from Tel Aviv University. She's done a lot of work on ants particularly, but she is really knowledgeable on all kinds of different things in our natural environment. I've had the pleasure of attending some of her events, so I'm really excited to hear what she has to share. And thank you, Marav, for joining us.
Thank you so much for the introduction. And thanks everyone for joining us. So today we're going to talk about citizen science in the Bay Area, and which is a topic I adore. And first, I actually wanted to start with a question. So how many of you think you participated in any kind of citizen science project? So let's start with the first poll. Okay, awesome. So we've got about 75% yes. So people that participated in citizen science project. Awesome. Okay. Let me start first. Well, I guess Sven already gave a wonderful introduction. So I'll just say that my background is actually in entomology. So I'm not a birder, even though I like birds, but I like everything else. And that's what I love about the citizen science that I participate in, is that we look at everything. But we'll get there. Okay, so let's talk about citizen science. So what is citizen science? So citizen science is basically a project where we have volunteers out doing some kind of research, but these volunteers are not necessarily with any kind of scientific background. So it could be any community member that goes out and collects real scientific data. And there's a discussion nowadays trying to figure out if you want to change the term, if you want to change the term from citizen science to community science. And I don't know, I saw that most people still use citizen science, so I'm going to use it for the presentation, even though, I mean, I'm happy to change if that's where we're going. I must say that one of the things I love most about this field is that it's so inclusive. It's all about getting everyone to be part of it, part of the study, part of the research. Unlike in academia, where I was for many years, where it's just the researchers doing their own thing, this is about getting everyone involved, and I love that. But if we need to change the terminology, sure, why not? So one community science project or citizen science project that probably many of you participate in, and I'm guessing that many of the people here listening are birders, right? Because this is SFBBO. So I would guess that most people are with some kind of interest in birds or enthusiastic birders or somewhere there. So I'm guessing that many of you know about eBird, contribute to eBird, and that's a terrific citizen science platform where you could save your observations, so your bird checklist. You could explore what other people found. So they have these beautiful maps like the one here that shows you hotspots, places where people find birds near you. You could always make a new one. And I mean, it's amazing. You could download the data and use it for research, or use it just to explore new places. But eBirds is just one option. There's so many other ones. So just in our area, I just got a few examples of citizen science projects looking at birds. Okay, so we have, by Cornell University, also Nest Watch, Backyard Bird Count with Audubon as well. SFVBO has its own programs with water birds and bending station. Point Blue in the North Bay has also other interesting projects. And then Audubon Society, of course, has the Christmas bird count and other projects. So these are just to name a few. But it's not just about the birds, right? There are lots of other projects in the area. So some of them have some pretty interesting names, like the Zombie Watch. It's not about the zombies, it's about the bees. And then there's the Turtle Observer, Reef, Redwood Watch, Rare Plants, Jelly Watch, kind of awesome logo, the Watershed Project, King Tide. So it's not necessarily about biodiversity. It could be lots of different things. And this one, the Science Starter, is actually a platform for citizen science. So everyone could just create their own project and use that as their platform. And California Naturalist Program, which is really awesome, has this beautiful list of dozens of programs happening in California, many of them in the Bay Area. So if you're interested in more info, you could check it out later. I'd like to point out a few organizations that are very active in our area. So in the East Bay, we have the California Center for Natural History that has awesome programs. And now they also have some really interesting online presentations, so check that out too. California Academy of Sciences. The museum has a beautiful natural history program, citizen science program with a few different projects that I will mention later on. Sequoia Audubon, that probably many of you know, in San Mateo County, they have a mission to try and document places that not too many of us get to and make sure that they get enough attention, which I think is really awesome. And then the two last ones is Keep Caddy Creek Beautiful, which is the organization I collaborate with most, and my organization, BioBlitz Club, that I will mention later. So I'd like to share a few examples of projects that I really like. The first one, whoops, this is the second one. The first one is the Bug Club. I mean, just the name is awesome. It's by Grassroots Ecology, a nonprofit in the peninsula. And once and sometimes twice a year, they go out to sample macroinvertebrates from Stevens Creek in Cupertino. And looking at these macroinvertebrates, you could learn a lot about the health status of the creek. So what they do is they collect samples from a few different points along the creek, above the dam, below the dam, in different places. And then for about a year, they have a group of volunteers that would sit down and identify these macroinvertebrates to species as possible. And it's been going on for many years, for about 16 years now. So they have an amazing data set since before the New Zealand mud snail invaded some of their sites. So it's really, really interesting. And it's a wonderful project because just like other citizen science project, it creates a community, even if it's a small community, but it creates a community around this specific subject. It's very, very specific and very tiny, but it's just beautiful. I love this project and I volunteer there when I can. Car Academy has this cool project every summer. So it just started in June, but will run all the way through November. They document biodiversity along the coast of the entire state. And if you go to their website, then you could read more about the idea behind this project. They have specific targeted species that they're interested in, but they're also interested in just everything. And this is done using iNaturalist, which is the main tool that I'm using, and I'll get to that later on. Okay, and the third example I'd like to give here is a project that I really love because I've been involved with it for almost 10 years now. It's the Jasper Ridge Ant Survey. by Stanford. So it started as a graduate student project back in 1993 by the Gordon Lab at Stanford. And for a whole month, the student would walk the entire preserve. So this is Jasper Ridge is a closed preserve near Palo Alto. And the student would walk the entire preserve and document ants over 250 points that you could see here on the map for about a month, twice a year. And about 12 years ago, it became a citizen science program instead. So now we have a group of volunteers that would walk the entire preserve in small groups and would identify ants. But just like other citizen science programs, you don't need any background. So we are happy to get anyone who is interested in ants or interested to get to know Jasper Ridge to join us. And before we do the survey, each time we do a half-a-day training where we teach people about ants and how to identify them. And it's a really fun project. And again, it's a great community. These are some of the ants that, you know, form our little community. And if you learn how to identify them, then you'll obviously learn how to identify other ants that you'll see around the area. So you see lots of familiar little faces. Okay, and just to show you like one slide of how it looks like, then these are all the points that we survey, and all the red triangles are places where we see Argentine ants, at least in that specific time. But it's mostly similar picture. And then the rest of the area has many different native species. And I could talk on and on about that, but let's move on. So yeah, this is an awesome group of volunteers, but we get many new volunteers each time we go, and it's really fun. So maybe you'll want to join us. And I think I'll try and provide you with a list of different resources that you could use, like different links to the website that I use. So if you want to follow up on any of these projects, that would make it easier. Okay, so now I'd like to focus on the BioBlitzes we do in the South Bay. But first, what is a BioBlitz anyway? So a BioBlitz is an event, usually a public event, where we invite the public to join us, and we go to a specific park or nature preserve, and we try to document as many species as possible within a certain time frame. So on a Saturday morning, we'll go to a park. Often it's just a park in, you know, middle of San Jose. And we use iNaturalist, that app, to document as many things as possible. And it's really fun. It's really, really fun. We get lots of families with kids, and they're so excited and go down into the creek and try and fish different things, and it's just so awesome. And then I collaborate with lots of different organizations, so mostly with Keep Caddy Creek Beautiful, but also with the Open Space Authority, with Audubon, Saved by Nature, and many others. With Keep Caddy Creek Beautiful, as you could guess from the name, we're really interested in learning more about Caddy Creek and the diversity of organisms we can find along the creek. So this creek comes all the way from Henry Cove into Coyote Valley, and then into downtown San Jose and into the bay, not too far away from the vending station, the SFPBL vending station. So we try to host events along the creek in different parks, and many of these parks, you know, not too far away from the neighborhood, so people could actually walk into our event. You don't need to drive all the way to Santa Cruz Mountains or to other beautiful open spaces around here, because nature is right here. You could see amazing things right in the middle of the city. And every time we do an event, we find really interesting things. We're always surprised at what we find, which is awesome. So I created this iNaturalist project page for all of my different events. So far in almost 3 years, I organized 39 BioBlitzes. Unfortunately, we had to cancel a whole bunch of them this spring, but you know, we'll get there. So you can see that so far we documented over 1,600 species in the area, and over 600 people help us document species. but many more people actually participate in the events. It's closer to like 1,500 people, because sometimes we have families or people that just choose not to document anything, but just want to join us. Because in each event, we have a group of volunteer docents that would lead small teams of our participants or our community members, and they take them out for a walk and show them different species, how to find insects, how to listen to birds, how to document things, how to use the app. And it's just a really fabulous experience. These are the different projects that we've done. So you can see them here on the map, from Warm Springs in the north to Diablo Foothills in the south, but mostly, as I said, in like San Jose, along the creek and in other parks. And you don't need much to do a BioBlitz. You basically need the smartphone and a spoon. I always take my spoon, because then I could scoop in little insects and other things. But you could even go without the spoon. But sometimes it's kind of nice to have a little bit more. So you might want to have like an underwater camera, or a camera with the zoom lens. This one is actually a macro lens. Some juice for your phone, some guides, some other gadgets. But you see, you don't need much. And this is mostly because we have this awesome tool called iNaturalist. Because before that, people would do BioBlitzes using paper and pencil, but that would be much more difficult than just using a smartphone. So in order to use iNaturalist, all you need to do is to take a photo of something living. It could also be evidence of something living. So meaning it could be animal tracks or animal scat, which is a nice word for poop. It could be bird feathers. So the app is actually getting so much better at identifying feathers. Because once you save your observation, once you upload your observation, the app will actually suggest an identification. So it has AI, artificial intelligence, that will try and identify what you see. And it's pretty good. You shouldn't always trust it, but it's really good, and it's getting better with time as the database keeps getting bigger and bigger. And then afterwards, real people actually look at your observations and might suggest a different ID or agree with what the AI suggested. But yeah, so basically iNaturalist is a social network for nature nerds like me. So you record your observation and then you share it with other naturalists. So once you save it, you share it with this huge community of over 1 million users now. And they might help you identify it. You might have an interesting discussion. And one of the things I like most about it is that it's a really nice community, and people are very friendly and helpful. And if someone would suggest an ID, often I would ask them to explain why they chose that specific ID or not. How about we do a quick poll to ask you guys if you ever used iNaturalist and if you have any experience with it. Okay, so let's do it quickly. About half the people never used it before, and then about, yeah, something like half, 44% used a little bit, and only 16% are addicted like I am. Okay, cool. Maybe by the end of the presentation. So once you make an observation using your phone, and you could actually do that on the computer as well, but we won't get into that. So once you make an observation, this is how it will look like on your phone. You'll have the photo, the location, and then later on, you hopefully will get some help identifying what you saw, but you could suggest something or guess what it is. And then on the computer, you could log in using the same username. There's this amazing website. iNaturalist has an amazing website where you can explore the database that has now over 40 million observations from the entire world. So you could go on to that website with your username and then learn more about what you saw. And if we're talking about a BioBlitz, then for each BioBlitz, we create a page, a project page that before the event, it helps us advertise. But during the event, you could see like the live results, which is kind of fun. You could see how many people uploaded stuff. And then afterwards, you could go online to the project page and you could see what everybody else found, which is always really interesting to see how far they actually hiked. And this is an example from Almaden Quicksilver Park in San Jose, from a BioBlitz we did last year in the spring. And each one of these little points represent one observation that someone did. And yeah, it's just awesome. And then you can see all the different observations. You can see what was the most common species or the most commonly observed species. That would be more accurate. But yeah, you can learn a lot from that. And then I want to show you another project. So there are lots of different projects that people start. Some of them are just amazing. This is one that we started in April. After we had to cancel all our planned events, we realized that we still want to go out and we still want to be able to share our experience with other people. So we created this project called Meet Your Nature Neighbors, where we encourage people to go out when it's safe and legal. And you could just go onto your yard, your balcony, walk around your block and record what you see there. And even though I've been, looking around for years, I was amazed what I would notice when I look even more. I was walking intentionally around my block, looking for different things. I went into my yard every day to look for stuff. It was really, really interesting to find so many cool insects and listen to the birds, and really, it was tremendous. So like all sorts of like bizarre insect eggs and yeah, really interesting observations. And also to see what my friends and people that I don't know found around their block. So it was really fun, and that project is still on. So hopefully you'll join that. Okay, but why should you use iNaturalist? I mean, other than documenting things and going to participate in a BioBlitz. So one thing that I think is really important is that I feel like it's changing the way that we look around us, even as naturalists, like people who are interested in nature and birders and botanists and entomologists. I feel like we look at much more things that we would have otherwise. So this article is talking about the fact that even most nature lovers only look at about 1% of the biodiversity. So most nature lovers would look at the beautiful birds or butterflies or some cute mammals, but almost no one would look at, the insects or slime molds or all sorts of little things that are really neglected. Another good reason to use iNaturalist is to learn something new. So did you always want to learn about lichens or slime molds or ants or something else? It's a great tool to get started because you could very easily filter out and sort all the different species that were documented where you live. So you could go out, take photos of, different things that you can't identify, and then try and identify them yourself online or find the experts that can help you identify them. And it's a really good way to get started. Another cool use is to plan a trip. A few years ago, I wanted to go hiking up north looking for mushrooms, but I didn't really know where to go. So this is how I found Salt Point. So that place covered with pink dots there. This is Salt Point. Pink is actually fungi. So yeah, I didn't know Salt Point before that, and apparently that's the place to go. So that was pretty awesome. Another cool thing is when you find something that you have no idea what it is. And I'll make this story short, but this was really fun. I found this bizarre little thing in a pond. So this is underwater in a little pond in Joshua Tree in the desert. I found that a few years ago and I thought it was amphibian eggs. And that's how I posted it. And then some people thought, oh, maybe that's like syslug and nudibranch. But obviously they're not found in the desert. So there were tons of different comments and people posted on like social media and stuff until a botanist started and said, oh, that's water clover, that is Sporingia. of a water clover. So really awesome. And sometimes you'll have these really fun discussions like this one. And then I feel like iNaturalist is a great way to feel like hands-on, get a hands-on experience on what biodiversity is. Probably many people hear that word but don't really know what it is. And I think once you go out and you use that tool, you find out what it is. And for example, I could show you where I live. I live in San Jose, and this is how my neighborhood or the area looks like. And I think it's kind of depressing. No open spaces, almost no parks. But when you look at the same area on iNaturalist, this is how it looks like. Every single point here is an observation of an animal, a plant, or a bird, or a mushroom. There's so much diversity here. And you'd think that most of these are invasive species. Well, some of them are, but there are also some really interesting native species, some threatened and endangered species that live in the city, and we find them when we go out on our BioBlitzes, and it's really interesting. Yeah, and these are just some of their faces, you know, these are some of the species that you saw on previous slide. Okay, so that's how they look like, and you could go into anywhere you'd like worldwide and explore and see who lives there, and it's really fun. Another cool use is to catalog your photos. I take, well, way too many photos of mostly animals and plants and different things, and then I upload them all to iNaturalist and use it as my own catalog. So I have my own profile page where I could, you know, share different links to different things. I could see my life list easily. I could easily check what are all the lady beetle species I ever saw. I could get an answer in like a second. And I did ask that question once, believe it or not. So yeah, you could look at your life list. You could look at the calendar of your observations and what you did and find things. You could look at a map with all your observations and figure out where you should go next, because there are no, you know, red dots there. And you could just look at all your observations. You could filter them very easily, looking for a specific date or park or project or taxa, like, you know, look for all your fish photos or anything like that very, very easily. So when I need to prepare a presentation, I could easily find all the photos that I'm looking for. Okay, so I think it's also really cool that now that we have 40 million observations, not all of them are great. Some of them, you know, people take photos of their dog or their sister, but there are so many that are wonderful observations of really interesting species, and you could use that for research. So I want to give you a few examples. I had to use this awesome mountain goat because there's a project looking at mountain goat molts, and they use iNaturalist photo to study climate change and its effect on the way that the goats shed their fur. And yeah, they have this cool diagram. That's one project. Another one that I found interesting here in California is looking at fog lichens and comparing their distribution to fog maps, trying to figure out how they're correlated. And there's pretty good correlation. It's very, very interesting. And you can join that project and contribute to the research. Yeah, this is the project itself. I think it's really cool. I don't think I have too many observations there. The other project I wanted to share is a study that I've been involved with in the past couple of years. It's a bit gross, but I think really important, so I'd like to talk about it anyway. We've been monitoring newts mortality on the Alma Bridge Road near the Lexington Reservoir in Los Gatos, near San Jose. My friend Ann Parsons, who I think is here now, noticed a few years ago when she was hiking in the area that there are many dead newts on the road, on Alma Bridge Road, around that reservoir. And she decided to start and document them. Last year, she was walking the road, which is about 4 miles, at least once a week, sometimes twice a week for the entire winter when newts, both the Californian newt and the rough-skinned newt, migrate. So they come from the forest down to the reservoir and to the creeks nearby to lay their eggs. So she walked the road and documented every single dead newt on the road. This year she wasn't able to do it, so we had a group of volunteers that did the research instead. And you could see here below in this project page that last year we had 4,800 dead newts on the road, and this year 5,200, okay, 5,000 dead newts on the road. This is the road. So this is a photo of the project from last year. Every single point is a dead newt. And I know it looks horrible, and people on iNaturalist, not all of them like it because they don't look cute and they don't smile. Newts usually smile. But when you look at it, I think it's just an amazing tool to document what's happening here on the lake, making iNaturalist also a very important tool for advocacy. Okay, and we've been trying to figure out a solution. What you can see here looking at this map is that the solution won't be easy, okay, because it's not like there's one location that you could create an underpass or something and you'll solve the problem. They die all along the road. But this is just, you know, to give you another example of a different project. By the way, we don't only look at the newts. We realize that there are so many other species, and when you look at the entire project, when you see all the different things that die there, well, the newts kind of take over. 10,000 newts, so let's remove 10,000 newts, and you can see that there are many insects, but also lots of other amphibians, toads, frogs, salamanders, many snakes and lizards die on the road, and even some birds and mammals. And it was actually really interesting to look for other kind of invertebrates. I mean, who looks at roadkill invertebrates? So it's a really interesting project, and I decided to continue walking the road through the summer because it was so interesting, even though luckily the newts are done migrating, and for the past, I think only about 4 weeks, we didn't have any newt. But until then, we still had dead newts on the road. Okay, so what can you do? Hopefully by now you're really interested in citizen science and you'd like to take part of it. So what could you do? One thing you could do is just go and explore a park near you. It doesn't need to be a fancy park. I mean, a fancy park is always best, but even just walk to your city park near you, walk around your block, walk into your neighbor's awesome native plant garden and look for cool stuff. This amazing spider is a rare spider we found on a pre-hike in some random park in San Jose. It's a really, really cool spider that mimics bird poop. So anyway, awesome find. And we find rare slugs and snails and other rare species when we do our bioblitzes in city parks. Another thing you could do is join the City Nature Challenge. So the City Nature Challenge is a really awesome project by Khan Academy, and it's been happening for the past few years. This year it was slightly different, but this year we had over 240 cities worldwide participating, trying to document as many species as possible over one weekend. So next year it's probably would be the last weekend of April. You could join in. There are usually many different events all around the Bay Area. So depending on where you live, you could go and join one of these projects. It's really fun. Now that we were sheltering in place and weren't able to go out, we wanted to bring nature into people's home. And I partnered with Keep Cady Creek Beautiful and Saved by Nature and virtual photo walks to provide virtual creek walks that we did quite a few of them. It was really fun. Hopefully we'll do more. But you can see that we really go into the creek and we take people in. We share the diversity with them. We share what we find, and it's fun. It's really fun. So there are lots of online activities that you could join, by Keep Beautiful, Saved by Nature. Holy H2O is hosting very interesting creek walks in the East Bay. And most of these events, even if you can't participate live, you could often find it afterwards and watch the video later. But I'm sure there'll be plenty more, as I don't think we're going to get back to normal anytime soon, unfortunately. So, this is another cool thing you could do. But you could still contribute to citizen science, even now. So there are really cool projects like this one by Grassroots Ecology. It's called Exploring Nature Near You. So about every 2 weeks, on Saturday morning, they have virtual bioblitzes. And these are really fun. So if you can, you could join that. I'll try to send you like a list of some of these events if you're interested in joining, and the names of the organizations that you could follow. You could also join our project, Meet Your Nature Neighbors, which I think is really fun, and learn about urban diversity. And I think you'd be surprised how many things you could find. And yeah, I also want to introduce for a second my website. So I created this website about a year ago called BioBlitz Club, where I have all the events that I'm hosting, the different BioBlitzes and nature walks and different things, and also lots of different resources you could download, like these little flyers, which I think are really fun. So I made some for spring flowers and late spring flowers and galls and all sorts of things that you could download and print at home and go out. And when we host real BioBlitzes, then we print these guides. We make specific guides for each event. And then we take people out and help them identify different things. And yeah, and with that, I'd like to thank you all for joining me.
So let's see, our first question is from Barbara, and she asked, do you submit all your BioBlitz photos to iNaturalist?
Yeah, I submit all my all my BioBlitz photos, because on a BioBlitz we try to get, this beautiful picture of the park with all the little points. So we try to, get as many as possible. But I must say, I also submit all my other photos to iNaturalist, which is kind of fun, but takes a while.
Iwai asked, how is Seek connected with iNaturalist, and when would you use one versus the other?
Oh, great question. So Seek is an app by the same team that made iNaturalist, and it's mostly, so I haven't used it recently, I must say, but I used it when it first came out, and it was mostly for people who wouldn't like to record their observations, but are interested in the AI. They would like to get that feeling of like, I can go out and identify something in a second, which is amazing, and it works very well. But then you don't get the rest of the benefits. So you only get the ID, which is awesome, but you can't catalog your photos because it doesn't save anything. So if you're worried about, your kid using that and you don't want people to know where he is, then that's a great way to go. The other ways to do it, by the way, you could obscure your location if you don't want people to know exactly where you are. So there's a way out of that. But yeah, so you could use Seek if you're just interested in identifying stuff, and you can use iNaturalist if you want to document and contribute to citizen science.
Great. Let's see, Neil asked, is there an app with an offline database to ID plants for places of very poor cell reception? And Barry replied that you can use iNaturalist offline and then later have the AI identify your observations. But is there anything you want to add?
So great question, great answer. You can use iNaturalist, as I said, to document everything when there's no reception, and then you could upload everything when you get back. You could also do it at home from your computer, but you won't get the AI if there's no reception. So you can't use the database. What I sometimes do is I create my own, well, I love these flyers, right? So I create a little flyer with the different species that I might see. And then I can use that. So you could easily see what species are found in the area that you're going to visit, or at least the ones that were documented, and use that.
Buret asked, what projects do you feel are best for kids, especially in backyards or schoolyards?
Ooh, good question. So, I mean, one thing you could do is you could start your own project, and I started one for my kids' school, which I think I'm the only one using, but it's still kind of fun because I can look at the diversity there. And when I do programs at the school, we use that to look at the different organisms that could be found there. So you could do the same thing. You could create a project for your school. I don't know if there's a specific project for that otherwise, but I'm happy to try and find something and send it over. Another project that I like, especially for the name, it's called Never Home Alone. It's a project about things you find at home, which I think is just awesome. So, you know, all these spiders that my kids want me to remove, and I say no, because, you know, they're part of the house. And all sorts of things that we find at home. So they all go into that project, and it's interesting to see what other people found at home.
That sounds fun. Chloe asked, do you know of any iNaturalist observations made in the Bay Area that lead to being incorporated in academic research? I know of some stories, but none local to the Bay Area.
Yeah, so last I checked, which was a while back, there were over 100 studies using iNaturalist as a data source. I'm not sure for something specifically in the Bay Area. I'll have to think about that. I would guess there are, because at least some of the projects that I looked at, like there's research looking at big leaf maple, so that's common in our area as well. But no, I can't think of any right now.
Judy asked, what is the most interesting thing you've come across in San Jose recently?
Because one of my favorite is that awesome spider I showed you, the one that looks like bird poop, which I looked for forever as a kid, and finally found one here in San Jose. So that was awesome. But when we were trying to explore nature around home for the Meet Your Nature Neighbors project, I was spending a lot of time in my yard, and I found two cuckoo bees. So these are bees that naked, they don't have any hairs. So most bees, they are covered with hairs because they want to collect as much pollen as possible when they visit flowers. But cuckoo bees, they don't need hairs, so they're kind of shiny. And they sneak into other bees' nests instead. And I found two of them that each looked slightly different. They're very pretty. Right in my yard. I'd never seen them before, and I thought that was very exciting. Fun question.
Yeah. Iway asked, do you have a good workflow if you take pictures on a real camera to get things onto the iNaturalist app? And she asked if you have to include a GPS point.
Good question. Yeah, so I didn't get deep into, you know, how to use iNaturalist. I'm happy to host another event about that, but I could quickly say that I usually have both a camera and my phone, and I take photos with my phone and with my camera, and especially for birds, I mean, you can't get birds with your phone. Then I would take photos with my camera, and I would take another photo with my phone just for the GPS. And then later on, I'll put everything in one folder on my computer and upload it from the computer. So that's what I do. I mostly take photos of insects and plants. And for that, I have my awesome macro lenses on my phone that were on one of these slides. So I think that's really useful. But even without that, just using your smartphone, you could get really good photos of things that are close to you, right? I mean, we don't walk for the birds, but as long as you get closer to what you're looking at and you're stable, I mean, the photo doesn't need to look nice. You just need to be in focus and to be informative. And you can upload more than one photo of the same thing into one observation if it's the same organism.
Derek asked, how can I get a naturalist?
Oh, so you just go to the App Store and you download it. It's free. You create a username, and then you could use the same username on the app and on the website, and you're good to go. There are lots of different online guides that you could use, but I think it's pretty straightforward. And the more you use it, the more you figure out like the other options that you could use, like how to explore projects, how to create your own project. Yeah, all that stuff.
John asked, do you work with POST, the Peninsula Open Space Trust?
Not directly, but sometimes, you know, they support so many projects in the Bay Area that I do work with them, but not directly.
Okay. Dudley asked, is iNaturalist US only, or are other countries involved as well?
So it started here in Berkeley, and now it's in Khan Academy is hosting the app, but it's used worldwide. So some places use it more and some use it less, but you could use it wherever you go, and you can explore the website and see what other people found worldwide. And then it's kind of fun when you travel. Sometimes there's lots of observations there, and sometimes you'd be the first one to observe, you know, even common things. But yeah, you can contribute to the website wherever you go.
So I don't see any other new questions. So I do want to thank you again, Mara, for hosting a great talk. And is there anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, I actually thought about something after answering Yiwei's question, that I didn't mention that it's not just about photos. You could also upload sound files. So any smartphone has an easy way to record sound, and many birders actually record bird sound anyway. So you could upload that, but you can only do it on the computer. So that's really fun, because I'm a pretty lousy birder. Well, I'm just not a birder. So I usually can't spot them. I often don't have my camera. But I started now listening to birds and trying to identify their songs and stuff. But and I'm also recording their songs and uploading that. And you could do frogs and toads and crickets and, you know, everything else.
Great. Well, thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and we hope to see you at a future event.